Carja, August Commemorative, Fáilte go Jane, Kevin Conshaw. Paul Turbert was due to chair today's commemoration, but he is ill and unable to attend. This year, we remember the women and men who went out on Easter Monday 1916 to take on the might of the British Empire. Circumstances went against them, but we shall never view their rising as a failure. Every decade since, Irish Republicans took up arms against the British, and they hated Unionists, and they inspired many others who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Irish women and men are buried here in Milltown Cemetery, as well as other cemeteries and graveyards throughout the country. We remember them as much as those who were executed after the Rising. In the recent phase of conflict, the chance to defeat the British was there, but unfortunately, weapons were surrendered, and both the Free State and six counties are recognised by some, but not all of us. 25 years ago, the British and constitutional nationalists hurled the Good Friday Agreement, but all it has done is strengthen Britain's hold on this putrid little statelet. We see on a daily basis poverty manifesting itself by suicides, homelessness, unemployment, hospitals and schools suffering. The Good Friday Agreement means absolutely nothing to the working classes, but everything to slum landlords, private health centres and big business. This is definitely not what those who went out on Easter week fought and died for. We will oppose all that is wrong in this country. The cops, the courts, big business that exploit the working people. We're also against English parasites who are welcomed by constitutional nationalists. We will oppose war criminals like Biden, the Clintons and others who talk of peace but cause misery to millions throughout the world. As James Connolly wrote, if you strike at, imprison or kill us, out of our prisons or graves, we will still evoke a spirit that will thwart you, and perhaps raise a force that will destroy you. We defy you, do your worst. Just like wreaths be laid here at the harvesting plant. Lasair Dhearg one will be led by Martine Jackson. Connolly Youth Movement, Connolly MacCoitir. Republican ex-prisoners, Frankie Brennan. And if anyone else has any flowers or wreaths, you're welcome to leave them here. We now have a lament by the piper, Vidalina. We'll now have the proclamation read by Amy Rafferty from the Connolly Youth Movement.
Pádraic MacCoitir, the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic, to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, In the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisations, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment and, supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation among the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to, and hereby claims, the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and all of its parts. Cherishing all the children of the nation equally, and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government, which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland, and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the provisional government, hereby constituted, will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity, or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Signed on behalf of the Provisional Government, Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, Thomas McDonough, P.H. Pearce, Eamon Cant, James Connolly, Joseph Plunkett.
Amy. Just like to say a few words about our next speaker, John Crawley. Sorry, our main speaker. John Crawley is a Republican activist who has served time in Ireland and England for his activities as an IRA volunteer. Born in the United States to Irish immigrant parents, he moved to Ireland at 14 years of age to attend school in Roscommon in Dublin. Inspired by the struggle for Irish freedom, he returned to the United States to enlist in the US Marines with the express intent of returning to Ireland and joining the IRA, and that's exactly what he done. He was captured in 1984 on the Marina Ann arms trawler and sentenced to 10 years in Port Alicia. He received a further 3 years for attempted escape, having completed his sentence. He was free for 20 months when he was captured in London on active service and sentenced to 35 years for conspiracy to cause explosions. Released under the Good Friday Agreement in May 2000, John joined Sinn Féin and continued to work with that movement for a number of years, but became increasingly disillusioned at the counter-Republican drift of the organisation, especially their acceptance of the Unionist veto benignly repackaged as a consent principle. Britain never guaranteed Ireland the consent principle. Britain never guaranteed Ireland as a whole. He resigned from that movement in 2007 when they formally recognised the British Crown Constabulary as a lawful authority in Ireland and encouraged Irish citizens to become their constables and informers. John eventually wrote a book called The Yank, recounting some of his experiences and impressions. Published in Ireland and the United States, it is presently being translated into Italian with other translations anticipated. John remains a committed Irish Republican. So, curse, really bus, can you, John?
I'd like to thank Pádraic MacCoitir and his committee for inviting me to speak at today's commemoration. It's a great honour to be standing at the gravesite of so many Republicans who sacrificed their lives for the full freedom and independence of Ireland. I'm conscious that Belfast has been at the centre of Republican activism and resistance going back to 1791 with the founding of the United Irishmen. Just a few miles away on Cave Hill, overlooking this city, our Republican leadership, including Wolfe Tone, Thomas Russell, Samuel Neilson and Henry Joy McCracken, pledged never to desist until we had subverted the authority of England over our country and asserted our independence. 200 years later, a contemporary leadership who boasted they led the most dangerous and committed revolutionary force in Ireland and assured us they would lead us to the Republic, were eventually co-opted to Britain's analysis of the nature of the conflict and have internalised a British blueprint to resolve it. Far from leading us to the Republic, they ended up as stakeholders in a regional franchise of the Westminster Parliament. One of the greatest crimes in the current political climate is to be perceived as opposing the British pacification strategy known as the Irish peace process. Few Republicans oppose peace, but we are entitled, indeed duty-bound, to be critical of a process that cannot lead to the objectives Republicans fought so long and sacrificed so much to achieve. The Good Friday Agreement is a snare and a delusion. It entangles us in a web of terms and conditions regarding Irish unity that only Britain can interpret and adjudicate. It invites the delusion British legislation will pave the way to a national democracy within an all-Ireland republic, a political outcome Britain has strenuously rejected and sabotaged at every opportunity. We must challenge the false narrative that the Republican struggle was simply about ending partition. There was no partition in 1916 when the Irish Republic was proclaimed in arms. Neither was there partition when the United Irishmen were formed in 1791. Unity for the Protestant founders of Irish republicanism meant national unity across the sectarian divide. That's what it should continue to mean, not territorial unity in exchange for enduring internal divisions that can only act to Britain's benefit. The 1916 Proclamation calls for us to be oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government, which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. The signatories were not claiming these differences did not exist, nor were they saying they could be dismissed as irrelevant. They were saying that these differences should not be used to shape the political architecture of Ireland. In contrast, those who support the Good Friday Agreement are determined that these differences will be permanently embedded in our national fabric, that unionists will remain forever in Ireland but not of it. Wolfe Tone believed that British rule in Ireland was irreformable and that sectarianism could never be addressed by the system which promoted and maintained it. Republicans believe that still. Irish unionists are pro-British, but they are not the British presence. The British presence is the presence of Britain's jurisdictional claim to Ireland and the civil and military apparatus that gives that effect. Ulster unionists vow they will never be forced into United Ireland, yet they lived in United Ireland for hundreds of years. A United Ireland they were not forced into, but their ancestors forced themselves upon during the plantation of Ulster. An Ireland united in the sense that until the 20th century, early 20th century, England treated our country as one political unit. Unionists never had an issue with the United Ireland per se. The Orange Order is an all-Ireland institution. The Presbyterian and Methodist churches are all-Ireland ministries. And of course, the Church of Ireland is not the Church of Northern Ireland. Their real objection is being subject to the majority decision-making of an Irish national electorate. While no one suggests a British government withdrawal from the 6 counties would lead to a sudden unionist reappraisal of their identity, the fact remains the union is existential to unionism. You cannot be a unionist without the union, but you can be a nationalist without the republic. That's why unionists defend the union with the vigour that few nationalists reciprocate for the republic. Ulster unionists and their allies believe that the doctrine of unionist exceptionalism not only grants them a veto over British constitutional decisions, but preempts Irish decisions in any future united Ireland. Though 18% of the population of Ireland and only 2% of the population of the UK, unionists believe they have the right to say no to everything and everyone whenever it suits them. The logic of democracy doesn't burden them. Britain ensures it doesn't have to. Just as Unionists were awarded a veto on Irish unity in the 1920 Government of Ireland Act, before the English-Irish Treaty talks even began, there is a campaign to grant Unionism a veto over the identity and symbols of a united Ireland before it is legislated for. These decisions should be left to the judgment of the Irish people as a whole, as they would be in any normal democracy. Unionism's exceptional right to say no may include a veto over the Irish national flag and anthem, and an insistence on rejoining the British Commonwealth. Far from breaking the connection with England, there are powerful and influential forces attempting to deconstruct the concept of Irish nationhood and lure the whole of Ireland more fully into a British orbit. On the 29th of March this year, Lord David Frost, a former British diplomat and Minister of State at the Cabinet Office, told a gathering in Lisbon that, in time, the Irish will be part of our British future. The Brits play the long game. They know Ireland has no shortage of weak and ambitious puppets, keen to carve out political careers by partnering with Britain in consolidating and validating our country's constitutional division. It won't be long until you hear this shared island become these shared islands. Those who believe that Unionists may be enticed into United Ireland by discarding or eroding Irish national emblems, anthems and symbols, by chasing English royalty around Ireland, or by attending British war memorials, forget that Ulster Unionists chose to opt out of joining the 26th county state in 1922, when that state had substantially closer links with Britain than it does today. The Free State government had retracted its allegiance to the Irish Republic, set up a subordinate parliament in the name of the king, took an oath to be faithful to that king, was a member of the British Commonwealth, and was actively killing Republicans. And yet, Unionists wanted no part of it, not then, not now, not ever. There is no question that for many Ulster Unionists, their communal identity is rooted in a paradigm of settler colonialism. Every 12th of July, they celebrate this imperial legacy and their pride at being descended from the English and Scottish planters sent to ethnically cleanse Ulster and tame and civilize the native Irish who remained. When pressed, their perception of themselves as a colonial garrison often outweighs any loyalty to London. An Irish national democracy rooted in non-sectarianism and civic equality holds no allure for this mindset. Recognizing this is one thing, pandering to it by sabotaging Ireland's Republican heritage is another. Our struggle must focus on where the root cause of the problem lies, on the Union and not the Unionists. Britain's claim to be in Ireland simply to protect the democratic wishes of Ulster Unionists is a feeble alibi. Ireland was partitioned not to defend the rights of Unionists, but to deny the right of Ireland as a whole to national self-determination. England's conquest of Ireland began centuries before the Ulster plantations. There was no Union and no Unionists when England's sword first cut its genocidal swathe through Ireland. What was England's excuse then? It was, of course, naked imperial ambition, combined with the strategic objective of preventing this large landmass on their western flank from being used as a potential base against them. Britain won no argument in Ireland. It achieved no legitimate mandate for its presence. In the words of Roger Casement, conquest has no title. The campaign to defeat Irish republicanism, its philosophy, ethos and symbols is all pervasive and cuts across the many layers of loyal nationalism, north and south. By loyal nationalists, I mean those disposed to perceive Irish national ambitions through the prism of British strategic interests, those who concur with British government definitions of peace and democracy, and join with Britain in declining to recognise Ireland as one democratic unit. Rather, they accept the constitutional legitimacy of partition and endorse Britain's provincial assembly at Stormont, including its armed wing, the PSNI, a crown constabulary buttressed by the British Army and MI5. According to this mindset, the root cause of violence in Ireland is not the British occupation of our country, but the Republican aspiration to end it. Consequently, they hope to immunise the Irish people against the concept of an Irish Republic as defined by the 1916 Proclamation, to nurture a herd immunity against Republican ideology. Despite their best efforts, the Irish Republic, proclaimed in 1916 and democratically endorsed by the First Dáil in 1919, continues to carry immense moral authority with many Irish people. Loyal nationalism attempts to develop institutions that Irish Unionists, inspired principally by plantation Protestantism, will accept and the British government will endorse. To achieve this, they seek to create a polity unencumbered by the Republican demands of national independence and of civic unity across the sectarian divide. These careerists will happily settle for a compromised authority, an accommodation with England falling substantially short of Irish national sovereignty. In 1585, the Elizabethan planter Edmund Spencer wrote that the Irishman will in time quite learn to forget his Irish nation. Today, we hear what Tony Blair called the decommissioned mindset proving him true. The decommissioned mindset knows that Britain rewards nationalists willing to treat Ireland as a malleable geographical fragment and punishes Republicans who regard it as an indivisible nation. Robert Emmet did not request his epitaph be withheld until his country had taken its place as two nations among the nations of the earth. There is a saying that if you can't do what counts, make what you can do count. Key elements of the provisional leadership, unwilling or unable to make the personal sacrifices required to continue to pursue Republican objectives, cynically jettisoned that struggle when thrown a lifeline by the British government. They were co-opted to Britain's vision of a united Ireland that retains the sectarian dynamic and the resulting British-Irish cleavage in national loyalties into any new constitutional arrangements. The so-called New Ireland, or United Ireland, envisioned by the Good Friday Agreement, is neither new nor united. It is predicated on all the old divisions. Thus, the political malignancy to which Britain historically manipulated and controlled Ireland will remain intact. Pádraic Pearse said of Wolfe Tone, "He has spoken for all time, and his voice resounds throughout Ireland, calling to us from this grave when we wander astray, following other voices that ring less true." Today, there are voices that ring less true, telling us that far from breaking the English connection, we must preserve aspects of it in any new constitutional arrangements. This includes an acknowledgement that the British royal family should play a continuing role in Ireland, providing an institutional point of reference for the loyalties of those citizens who cannot bring themselves to discard the symbolism of the British Crown, the entity which underwrote the twin pillars of plantation Protestantism, confiscation and sectarian supremacy. Despite the willingness of loyal nationalism to buy into the British analysis of the nature of the conflict as a domestic dispute between tribal factions in which Britain has no selfish strategic or economic interest, it was England who injected the sectarian dynamic into Irish politics. England declared a Protestant kingdom where no Catholic could be head of state. It made Protestantism the test for loyalty and patronage. The British are in no position to lecture the Irish on the constitutional model of a united Ireland based on liberty, equality, non-sectarianism and social justice. Although well versed in the reactionary racist and sectarian mindset of settler colonialism, we must never forget that it was Irish Protestants, inspired not by the plantations, but by the Enlightenment, who were the founding fathers of Irish republicanism. That political DNA still exists in many Irish Protestants and can even be found among some small U unionists. The voices that ring less true insist that Irish Republican objectives will be ultimately achieved through British legislation, that sectarianism, inequality and partition will be tackled by the government that created and harnessed them to achieve their imperial ends. A Republican voice must once again be heard, a collective voice that echoes the Republican ideals of the United Irishmen, reminds us of what United Ireland really means. A voice that rings true, a voice that remembers who we are and what we represent, the breaking of the connection with England, and the establishment of an Irish national democracy within an all-Ireland republic. Dhearg Magan.
John. Just before I finish off here, I'd just like to make a point that there's an English parasite coming here next month. There's war criminals coming here, Biden and the Clintons, and we are encouraging people to go out and protest. I have to watch my language here, against these people. And it is imperative that we stand here today, obviously remember all that went before us, 1916, the plots here, plots throughout this cemetery and other cemeteries, and we should never forget that. And it's right that we should be here remembering our dead. But there's more to life than that. We need to move on. We have to turn around and say, right, we want to achieve a socialist republic. We won't just achieve a socialist republic by standing at graves, as I said, that is right to do it and to commemorate. We need to go out on the streets, encourage people to join us, whatever those organisations may be, because be under no illusion, we're up against a very, very strong enemy that is out there, based in Stormont, based in Leinster House, and based in Westminster. Those people who make too many decisions for the working class people, and too many people are cowed by it. We should get off our knees, as James Connolly, Pádraic Pearse and others have said in 1816, and it's important that we go away here today. Obviously, it's the time of year that is in it. It is right that we go and maybe not enjoy the holiday, but also when we're talking, whether it be in a bar, a cafe, in the house, or walking around here with our friends and comrades, saying, what more can we do? It's not just up to our lads like me, up to other people. I'm looking around the crowd here, the number of young people here, and it's important to get involved in politics and not just talk about it or shout from an ivory tower that too many people do. So I'd just like to say a big Gurmila Mayugov, I continue chatting Sean you.